Yes, people, Manscaped is back, but this time it's not for below the belt grooming. Manscaped brings to you the Beard Hedger, the best product on the market when it comes to beard trimmers. The Beard Hedger is unique due to its number of radiant settings. As someone who's purchased this, I won't turn to any other beard trimmer. Check it out for yourself at manscaped.com. And don't forget to use code FTM20 to get 20% off of this product.
What's happening, people? Hope you're good. Back in the house, 12th man's back, Gooner's back, and I've got one of my good friends and a good friend of the show, Curtis Shaw from Curtis Shaw TV. What are you saying, Curtis? You good, bro?
Hey, by the way, that's a good advert, you know.
Cheers, man.
That's a good advert. I was watching that thinking, yo, I might even order that the way you've advertised.
Come on.
No, big up, man. Good to be back, and I'm sure we'll be talking about the same names we spoke about 2 or 3 weeks ago. You know, Marino's still not here, but we are being linked with different names every day, actually. But none of them have joined yet. But hopefully, in the next week, something happens.
It's mad. I'm waking up every morning doing these transfer news shows, thinking, anyone news this morning for Arsenal? No, everyone else is doing business. There's enough to talk about, but my goodness, it's like, come on, please. But there is some breaking news today, and there's also some players I want to chuck at you, see if you fancy saying yay or nay to them. Before we do that, though, people, do me a favor, hit the like button. Make sure you're going and following Curtis if you're not already. Curtis on his way to 100K, man. Absolutely fantastic content every single day. His link is in the title, man. Just click the title, go see it, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and you'll know when Curtis is on. Make sure you show Manscaped some love. Obviously, that advert there promoting the Beard Hedger. All you got to do is click the link in the pinned comment, and you'll get 20% off of the beard trimmers called the Beard Hedger. So just add it to your cart. Using that link, you'll see 20% has come off. So make sure you show them some love, people. Curtis, let me talk to you first of all about this Lookman news, because I heard this morning that £50 million, Kiwior being mentioned as potentially in some form of swap deal there as well. What's your genuine thoughts on this? Because this player came to England at, I think, Everton and Leicester and didn't really light up the league, but he has done well in Serie A at Atlanta. I was looking at his goals and assists. So last year, he got 18. Season before, 19 goals and assists. Different league, kind of more of a left winger, in my opinion, but certainly a wide player that can play on both. Exciting or a bit meh? What are you saying, bro?
Nah, for me, I'll be honest, man. Like I've seen him quite a bit when he was in England. A good friend of mine works at Leicester, actually, and he was there for a little bit when they were in the league. He's a live wire, but they're talking about 50 million for him. Is he better than what we've got? Not for me. Yeah, probably better than Nelson. But the other 3 wingers, Martinelli, Trossard, Saka, I'm not sure he's an upgrade on any of them. And they're talking about 50 million. And he's 26 now, which obviously is still young for a footballer. I think maybe he's kind of found himself. But I think you've got to be careful when players struggle in the Premier League, then go to Italy and do well. The dynamics of that league are so different. I remember when Tammy Abraham went there and ripped it up, people going, oh, let's get Tammy Abraham. I was like, nah, I don't really rate this guy. You look at Lukaku, you know, he rips up Serie A pretty much most of the years he's been there. He struggled here. So, listen, he's a very good dribbler. He's a live wire, scored a brilliant... did he get 2 or 3 in the Europa League final? He got a couple, didn't he? At least.
He got a hat-trick, I think.
He got a hat-trick. Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing hat-trick. But for me, I mean, listen, when I look at the team and what we need, if Arsenal are going to drop 50 million, I think there's other areas. I just think you can get a better player than Lookman if you're spending 50 million. If you was buying him for 20, 25 million, maybe I'd say take a risk. But 50 million pound for Lookman to me doesn't add up. I think we can get better than that.
Yeah, I must say, when I saw the links to this, I didn't really believe it. And now it is starting to become a little bit more linked, a little bit heavier rumour. Look, I'm not saying Lookman's a bad player. I'm not saying he's not better than Nelson. I think that he probably is. But it's not the signing that everybody around you goes, oh, my God, Arsenal are going to win this title. I don't see that there's a name out there at the moment, bro, that we can go, wow, that's the one that gets Arsenal across the line. Maybe Nico Williams, maybe an Alexander Isak. After that, the drop-off from those two is kind of like, yeah, maybe a Lookman and maybe an Osimhen. Do you know what I'm saying? Or Ivan Toney. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm kind of not excited by this one. If it happens, I'm willing to judge him in an Arsenal shirt. I'm not going to judge him until he wears one, of course, right? But I kind of feel like there'll be a lot of the fans that are shouting at the screen now at me and you going, if Arteta and Edu want him, then he must be the guy. And to be fair, listen, they've proven that with Ben White, with Tomiyasu, Ramsdale, these players that I looked at and thought, really? Odegaard, when we got Odegaard, I thought, well, if Madrid don't want him, he can't be that good. Wow, he's been brilliant. So fair play. I hope if we do get him, he's going to turn into one of those. But I kind of ask you, right, we'll come on to the striker or winger debate in a minute. If it is going to be a wide forward or a winger, I feel we need a pacey one. And at least Lookman is that guy. At least he has that pace. Because Martinelli, I think he might have lost a bit of yard of pace, to be fair. I'm not too sure about him, if I'm honest, this season. I think he's got a massive season ahead of him. But we've always looked, Curtis, right, at a left winger. Remember when it was Mudryk, we got Trossard in the end? That guy coming in, if it would have been Mudryk, probably was going to play ahead of Martinelli, because for 60, 70 million or whatever we were trying to bid for him, for me, you don't put players like that on the bench. So I think that we always looked at that wide area and cover for Saka, and I think it does need to be pacey. Well, where are you at with that, man? What sort of attributes do you need this winger to have or wide forward to have, bro?
I'm with you. I think we need pace in that front line. I think Martinelli is probably the quickest of our attacking players, and pace scares people. You know, it puts them on the back foot. I think we need somebody that can dribble at pace, because even though Martinelli is very quick, I think I don't look at him as a brilliant dribbler. You know, he's often runs the ball out of play or runs down blind alleys, as they say. I think we need someone that can score goals, because if we end up in a situation where Havertz is the striker, I think you then need a situation where both wingers are scoring maybe 15 goals plus as well, like Liverpool did when they had Mane and Salah and players like that. So, listen, I mean, the thing what's strange about this window, at the beginning of the window, I thought if you want a winger, there are a lot of good options there for Arsenal. You were looking at Elise and Neto. Nico Williams had the release clause. You know, a few of the Bayern Munich wingers we've been linked with in this window. We've sort of sat there and allowed Neto to go. Elise's gone elsewhere. Bayern, they said maybe Kingsley Coman could go on loan. So to then go and spend 50 million on Kingsley Coman would be like, not Kingsley Coman, sorry, Ademola Lookman would kind of be like, why have you spent 50 million on Lookman, who is probably not as good as those players that you've allowed to go to other clubs? I mean, I know they're talking about maybe Kiwior as part of the deal. So maybe Arsenal are looking at it and thinking, we sort of kill two birds with one stone. We get a player off the wage bill that wants to go back to Italy, and we get a player in that maybe the difference with Lookman compared to some of them others, he wouldn't complain that much if he was on the bench. You know, if you're signing Neto or someone, he's probably going to say, well, I need to start. Where Lookman might be, you know, this would be the biggest move of his career. I'm sure he wouldn't complain if he was rotated. So maybe that's how Arsenal are looking at it. They're saying 50 million, but I would imagine it would be Kiwior plus maybe 20 million to get Lookman out the door, which to them might make more sense. Listen, and someone's put it there. I've just got this feeling, and I don't know why, that this Raheem Sterling thing will...
Oh, don't.
I'm telling you, bro, because if you look at it, you know, we have to do Arsenal mathematics. It's different to normal maths. Like, they're going to sell it as Premier League winner. Arteta's worked with him at Man City. You can play on both wings. You know, you get him on loan with maybe an option. Sterling probably wants to stay in London. I wouldn't be surprised. I know we haven't actually done it yet, so maybe not. But it's... this window has just been so confusing as an Arsenal fan, because I actually didn't think we needed a lot. It was sort of quality over quantity, and I can't understand why we haven't moved more aggressively. And I'm just a bit concerned that if you look at it, when we didn't sign Calafiori until Smith Rowe had agreed to go to Fulham. And I'm thinking, is the Marino deal on hold until Eddie Nketiah has gone to Forest? It's like, do we have to sell a player to buy a player? Which makes you think, with all the money that we've earned, Champions League money and so on, how come we can't get those deals done? But yeah, just to go back to your question, in terms of a winger, I think we need pace. I think we need somebody that can score goals and just add a different dimension to our attack, really. So yeah, but let's see if we do.
Let me come back to something you said, because I think you made a great point. Arsenal's window has been very confusing. And there's a lot of rival fans that have been confused by me. They're like, I don't get what Arsenal are doing. They didn't need a left back. They certainly need someone more of a kind of, what do they call it? A needle mover than Marino. They definitely need a striker. Doesn't look like they're getting one.
Yeah.
I can't defend Arsenal with that. I can't say, you're talking madness, mate. Look at what we're doing. It's unbelievable window. I'd love to do that, but I kind of can't. Now, listen, I don't think that Calafiori and Marino are going to be terrible signings. I don't look at them and go, this is a shambles. They're both terrible. It's not, we're not signing, trash like Aaron Cresswell and like, bloody John Joe Shelby. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? So for me, we actually got two decent players there in Calafiori and Marino. And that's our left-hand side, I think, kind of sorted now, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I kind of can't help but notice what I kind of wanted to bring up what Helsinki had said in the chat here, because I kind of agree with this. If you're going to slap £50 million down on a player like Lookman, that could be a huge risk, why would you not go and put it down on Ivan Toney, who's Premier League proven and is a striker? Because I'll give you this scenario. You've got £50 million, let's just say, to spend. You either go and put it on Lookman and get your winger, and you have Saka recover, or what you do is you go and put 50 million on Ivan Toney, get your proven striker, and Jesus goes on the wide areas and helps Saka out. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like that would be a better option, no?
And I mean, listen, man, I think I've said this before. Like, I know people who know Ivan Toney, and I've always been a big advocate of bringing him to Arsenal. I know a lot of people have this thing about, the attitude, but if you look at Brentford, they've never questioned his attitude. And look, we're not going to get the world-class striker in this window. That's just the reality. They're not there, or if they are, we haven't got the money to do it. So I think sometimes you've got to say, okay, let's get a player in that can get us over the line for the next couple of seasons. And then maybe in a year, 2 years' time, you would go for an Isak, or you would go for somebody else. And listen, I know there are people who are on the fence about Ivan Toney, or every striker's got an element of risk attached to them at the moment. Yoker has had one season in Portugal. Darwin Núñez had one season. He's been a massive flop. Isak would have probably cost over 100 million. The club don't want to do it. You could probably get Toney for 50 million, 60 million, and, 20-goal striker in the Prem, a bully. But, because Arsenal put this story out that, we met him and we didn't like his attitude, everyone's ran with this narrative that, Toney's got a bad attitude. But where is that really coming from? He's never been known for having a bad attitude anywhere else. But because Arsenal said that, everyone's jumped on it. I know, obviously, the betting scandal doesn't look good. But yeah, I'm with you. Listen, I keep saying we've got to do better than what Manchester City are doing. Man City have won the league the last 4 years. They've been a better team than us. They've got a better manager than us. That's just the reality. I think you could look at their window and say they've had a better window than we've had, because Savio was one of the best wingers in La Liga last year. For anybody who watched him, he was unbelievable last season. Obviously, they've got him because Girona and City are owned by the same owners. And then now Gundogan's gone back, who is still a super clutch centre midfielder who gives them another extra bit of quality there in midfield. And obviously we've signed Calafiori, never played in the league. We don't know how long it will take him to adjust. Will he play left back? Will he play centre back? And then Marino, who this deal's dragged on. He's had no pre-season at Arsenal, so you don't know how long that's going to take to integrate him. So for me, we're behind Manchester City as a team, and then we're behind them in the transfer window as well. So it's frustrating. You wanted to see Arsenal just be on the front foot, go and get the striker or go and get the winger, whatever they feel they want, and have this window tied up. But for some reason, it seems to be dragging, and we don't really know what the plan is. And there's rumours Marino, and then they're going to buy a goalkeeper if Ramsdale goes. Calafiori, Marino, and a backup goalkeeper doesn't feel like a window of a club that is desperate to win the league title. And I'm not even throwing that blame on the manager. I'm looking at the ownership and Edu, the guy who's negotiating. So I think there has to be questions if we don't bring an attacking player.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, man. Listen, let's bring up some of the stats of Lookman, because to be fair to it, I looked at it this morning. I didn't realize actually what we were looking at in terms of what he's done in Serie A. I don't watch Serie A. I don't know if you do. I don't know much about him. I know that obviously Atlanta obviously won the Europa League. But,
Yeah.
we're looking here, like season before last, 31 games in Serie A. So he's obviously a player that doesn't get many injuries, because for playing 30 games this season is decent. With 13 goals and 6 assists. And then this season just gone, 31 games again that he played with 11 goals and 7 assists. Obviously, in the Europa League, which he won, he got a hat-trick, scored 5 goals, 1 assist. And then in the cup competitions, he's only played a couple of games because I guess they didn't progress very well. But he scored in both seasons in the cups as well. So we're looking at a player that can get on the score sheet, that can get GA. I mean, 17, 18 and 19 GA in the last few seasons is pretty decent, bro, to be fair. But like you said earlier about Lukaku and like other players that have done well in Serie A, he has already played in England and it hasn't really worked for him. So I know he was young. I get he was 19, 20 or whatever it was. He's 26, I think now. But I just don't know that this would be a signing that makes everybody go, wow. And I feel like if he is going to be coming in at Arsenal, I don't know that he's going to be looking at getting those sort of numbers, because he is going to be playing behind Saka. So I don't know what your thoughts are about this Lookman deal, but do you think that for that sort of money at 50 million, if we're just concentrating on our winger, do you think you'd rather see that kind of money spent on another winger in another area, Leroy Sané, Eze, or put towards that kind of, because Eze would be more than that. Coleman, for me, I wouldn't touch. He's played like no football at all. His injuries are ridiculous, mate. I think he played about 15 games last season. So those kind of wingers that we're being linked with, some in Adingra as well over at Brighton as being mentioned as someone we're looking at, and Bakayoko if you wanted someone a little bit younger. Like, I don't know, Curtis, I'm trying to throw some names at you at the wing areas, thinking, is Lookman the best of that bunch? Sterling, again, we have to mention it. I know I don't know about your thoughts on that. Maybe I'll get them from you now. But those options that we're looking at, is Lookman the best out of those wingers?
Bro, let's be honest. Arsenal, I always say, like, they like a TK Maxx bargain section, you know what I mean? With the red sticker on it. Listen, Lookman has improved since going to Italy. He is a decent player. He's a good dribbler. He's quick. And obviously, his numbers have improved in Italy. I mean, I'm just looking at things here, right? He's on 40 grand a week. Yeah. So that works perfectly for Arsenal. You give him 70 grand a week to come to the Prem. He's going to be happy with that. As I said, he's never played at a club as big as Arsenal. He's not going to mind being rotated and sitting down on the bench. He plays left wing for them, actually. More than on the right, but obviously he can play on the right. To me, this looks like a cheaper deal that probably suits Arsenal. As a fan base, I do not think this is the right answer, and I don't think this would excite the fans. And I don't think this signing pushes us ahead of Manchester City. It's a good player that can come into your squad. As I said, I think they'll try and get Kiwior there and maybe put a little bit of money on top. Atalanta are going to accept, payment structures that Arsenal probably like. And like I said, his wages are cheap. Leroy Sané, 250 grand a week. Sterling's on 300 grand a week. Kingsley Coman's on 180 grand a week. It all feels very bargain basement to me. And this is what I keep saying about Arsenal that's frustrating me, is that we're supposed to be showing now. You've got us in a fantastic position as a club. It's just about now getting that final push over the finish line. We don't need 7 new players. We need 3 or 4 new players of high quality. And yeah, I mean, like we said, there's 8 days to go. But yeah, Lookman, to be honest, I don't think the Lookman deal will happen. I just can't see how that deal makes sense if you're really serious about. I mean, Nelson's still at the club. I'm saying he's better than Nelson, but Nelson's still here. So yeah, I'd be shocked if that deal happened. And I wouldn't be that happy with the deal either if you've waited all summer and you drop 50 million on Ademola Lookman. So I'm hoping it's just paper talk. We've been, as you know, bro, you do these transfer shows. We've been linked with about 100 players. And we've signed none of them pretty much. So
incredible, man. It's incredible.
And the other thing, what someone just said, sorry, Nico Williams got a 50 million release clause.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you pay 50 on Lookman? I mean, maybe Williams is waiting a year for Barcelona, but hopefully, yeah. I don't want Lookman. I don't want Lookman, to be honest.
Well, listen, apparently there's some news suggesting that we're not in for Lookman, according to Fabrizio. If that is true, I've not looked at it. I'll take a look in a minute. But I think for me, like this is gonna roll on until we get our guy. And it started with Nico Williams. It went quickly to Leroy Sané. Then Kingsley Coman come into the mix. Eze was mentioned. Pedro Neto was mentioned. I think we've been linked with pretty much every winger in world football, bruv. It's just a madness. It really is. And I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about the situation up top anyway. I think it's a nice segue because a lot of people are saying we need a winger. There's quite a few Arsenal fans I know and speak to regularly that believe we need a winger, not a centre forward. And I'm the other way round, bruv. I actually think we need a striker, and I would allow Jesus to go wide. But sometimes people I've spoken to are saying, nah, it's definitely Havertz and Jesus. They're good enough. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about Eddie Nketiah, because if he's going, we definitely need a centre forward, bruv. Because as much as I don't rate Eddie, we've only got Havertz and Jesus. And if you're going to be buying another forward in, what happens if Jesus gets a red and Havertz gets a knock? Do you know what I'm saying? We could be in that scenario where we need that third choice striker, and maybe it will have to be Trossard then or something like that. But for me, I kind of feel like Havertz and Jesus should be utilised as squad players. That's my honest opinion. Now, let's talk about, before we bring someone in, Eddie Nketiah going. I've got to be honest with you. I think Edu and Arteta, if they do play this one right and he goes to Forest, I have to hold my hands up and say fair play, because I was along the lines of we should have got rid of him to Marseille. That was my honest opinion. I would have accepted that bid at £25 million. I think it was more in euros. And I would have said, you know what, off you go, Eddie, have a good time. But it looks now that he is staying in the Premier League, and Forest are going to bid probably about 30 with some add-ons. I think Ornstein or Romano said it's probably going to be around £32 million in total if this actually goes through, which I think is exceptional to get that much money for him. What do you make of that? You and I have definitely been critical of Edu and Arteta in the past, but fair play on this one, I think, brother. Like, I mean, 32 million for Eddie Nketiah. That's incredible, isn't it?
Oh, bro, I was talking about it yesterday. I was like, look, I don't want to get too excited until he's holding that shirt up, because I know they were trying to get Jimenez, but it looks like that one's dead in the water now. Listen, man, 32 million for Eddie is, I think, incredible business. Considering, listen, I'm trying to be respectful. You know, I think he's long overdue to be sold by Arsenal, to be honest. Even when he got that contract, I was like, what? 14 shirt, 100 grand a week. But to get him out for 32 million is great business. So I do have to applaud Edu and Arteta for that, because I didn't think they'd get that much money for him in this market where, you know, prices have sort of dropped this season. Just in terms of, you know, the striker conversation, I think I agree with you. I think we do need a striker. And I think if Eddie goes, we definitely need another option. But my concern, again, looking from an Arsenal point of view, if you look at the majority of the big clubs in the Premier League, they've only got 2 strikers. So we're sitting here saying we've only got Havertz and Jesus. You've got to add a third. But I'm thinking from their point of view, they might think, you know, City have got rid of Alvarez. They haven't yet replaced him. They've only got 1 striker, although he's the best. You know, Liverpool have got Darwin and Jota. I know Gakpo can play up there as well. So I'm not even sure if Eddie going means like we're definitely going to go and get a striker, because, like you said, I think they could. I think they're going to go with Havertz number 1, Jesus 2, and I think Trossard can play false 9 as well. So yeah, listen, I'm hoping the whole window. I've been hoping. Get a few players out the door, free up some wages, and we'll do something big at the end of the window. There's still little whispers, isn't there, about Gyökeres and Osimhen and things like that. I'm just hoping they shock us and just do something big next week. But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. But yeah, we've got to sign an attacking player. I would rather it was a striker, because I think with Martinelli and Trossard on the left, you can get enough goals out of those two. I think with Saka on the right, he's going to produce as long as he stays fit. He probably needs a bit more competition. I'm still not certain about what we're going to get out of Havertz. Even though I do think he will score goals, it's just in those big moments, will he do it for us? But yeah, I'm just hoping. I'm hoping they shock us next week and we can all go crazy. But
we'll same, man. I'm praying that they've got something up his sleeve. Edu has told the fans to relax. It will be fine by the end of the window. Yeah. I hope it is, man. I hope it ain't one of those comments that comes back to haunt him, like Josh Kroenke, be excited.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm kind of hoping. Before we move on to the incomings up the top, which you kind of touched on, do you think it was the right decision to put Nelson and Eddie Nketiah on 100k a week? Because a lot of people are saying like that's why it's taken so long to get rid of them, and clubs aren't interested in matching their wages and stuff like that. I kind of feel like as much as it's protected their value, and he's proven that with Eddie, it's kind of then put clubs off. Like Leicester have been put off by the wages of Nelson and the fee that we want. So they've moved on now to get the other Brighton winger and the other guys that they want. I kind of feel now like maybe that was a bit of a mistake, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Curtis.
I mean, listen, I wouldn't give any of them 100k to be honest. But then if you get 32 million for Eddie, I think he's 2 years into that 5-year deal. 100k. I mean, he's probably 10, 12 million in wages. You get him out for 32. They could say that deal's been justified, whether I agree with it or not. But I think Arsenal have got to change how they move with some of these younger players. Listen, you don't mind a player being given big wages if they've justified it, like Saka and people like that. I don't see any reason how Reece Nelson's on £100,000 a week, to be honest. He's in his mid-20s. He's never played for England, the full national team. He's hardly had a run of games in the Arsenal team. And when you're looking around the league and Ederson's on 100 grand a week, he's won 4 Premier Leagues. He's, one of the best keepers in the world. You look at Luis Diaz at Liverpool on 70 grand a week, being linked with Barcelona, starts for Colombia and Liverpool. You shouldn't be giving these young players that much money when they haven't done enough to justify it. Now, I know the club will say maybe it's cheaper to give 100 grand a week to an English player than to go and buy an English player in an inflated market where, you've got to have so many English players in your squad. So I think that's something they've got to change moving forward. If a young player gets in the team and he's doing well and he's on like 20, 30 grand a week, it shouldn't be straight to 100,000 a week unless you've had the sort of impact maybe that someone like Saka's had. So I think they will have to tread a lot more carefully. They've got away with it with Eddie, getting him out if that deal happens. I think, like you said, if Nelson was on 60 or 70 grand a week, I think Leicester, one of those teams who were interested in him, would have bought him. But for those clubs, 100 grand's probably their top earner. You're not going to make Reece Nelson your top earner. So, yeah, I think you've got to start giving those young players a lot less money if you can.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'm with you in every word. I think 100k for Nelson was absolutely scary. And I think Eddie, with the number 14 shirt, is mad. And I look at what behind you, like the 2 best players ever played for the club, Bergkamp and Henry. They're also behind me as well, if you can see the shirt. And obviously Henry on the back of the wall. Both those shirt numbers are going to be available this season, bro. And I know that's mad. And people are like, oh, who cares? No one cares about a shirt number. But when you look at the heritage and the history of the club, shirt numbers actually do mean a lot to the fans. There are some fans that are genuinely like, right, Odegaard, give him the number 10 now. They're really obsessed by it all, And I think we've got 2 shirt numbers there that are going to be very heavy shirts for the next 2 players that come in and take them. And I think there's an opportunity now to have, there's a couple of players there that are going to come in and go, right, I'll take the number 10. I'm going to take that number 14 and be your striker. So for me, I think it's really important that we do get these right and we don't see potentially someone up top that we've not really heard of and somebody on the wing that we don't really want, to give them the 2 shirt numbers. And we've replaced maybe Smith Rowe and Eddie with 2 players that we think, crikey, I didn't expect to see these 2 coming in taking the shirt. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. The other thing I'll say is, look, I want Alexander Isak, and I'd love him to wear the number 14 shirt. Absolutely love that to be at Arsenal, right? That's not going to happen this summer. Maybe it will in the future, right? But for me, the only 4 names that I keep hearing are Gyökeres, Osimhen, and there's only 3 names really, Ivan Toney, right? They're the only real 3 striker names that I keep getting given. And the other one, of course, is Isak, which isn't going to happen. Do you think in any of those are coming, bro? Like real talk? Because like I look at Tony and I just think it's not going to happen. It looks like he's going Saudi. I look at Victor Osimhen and I think if he is going to be leaving, then it's going to be PSG or Chelsea ahead of Arsenal. So that leaves one player, and that's Victor Gyökeres, who isn't really linked with anybody at the moment. Looks like he's potentially staying because of the price tag of being a £100 million release clause. Do you think that Arsenal were trying to, like you say, get rid of the Eddies, the Ramsdales, the Kiwiors, the Nelsons of this world to go, right, that's our last pass at the puddle. Boom. Gyökeres is coming in the last week. That's what I'm kind of praying, bro, because I need something to happen up top, man. And if I'm honest with you, he's the one that I would take out of the others. I just look at his all-round game, and I think, well, no, that you mentioned earlier, it's quite risky about like Darwin Núñez vibes and stuff like that. But one, I don't think he plays like him. Darwin Núñez is better off the left and causes havoc and mayhem and is terrible in front of goal. Gyökeres is not terrible in front of goal, can link up play well, good with his back, and he's actually a really good ball carrier as well. If you look at his ball carrying stats, they're incredible. 58 GA in 50 games. I'm thinking, yeah, do you know what? I know it's a farmers league, as people say, but I don't see many of the other strikers getting 58 GA over there. So for me, I think there's something about him. He's also got experience in England, albeit for Coventry. I just kind of feel like if I'm pointing my finger towards anybody, anything happening, he's the one I'm leaning towards. But I don't know where you're at with this, bro.
I've got one little bit of hope in the striker situation. I'm clinging on to this. I'm looking at it like this. Arsenal had a meeting with Tony and his agent, apparently, right? Whether that's true or not. They sent scouts to watch Gyökeres. Apparently, Osimhen's agent was at the training ground last summer. And we know that we was in for Sesko at the beginning of the window. All those things put together would tell you, surely Arsenal are looking for a striker. If the circumstances are right. So I'm probably with you then. I would probably go for Gyökeres, even though I don't know too much about him, because I've just never been convinced by Victor Osimhen. He had a very good season that year, but I just think his link-up play is not great. He's been twerking for Chelsea online. He wants massive wages. Napoli, you're talking 100 million. At least with Gyökeres, the wages aren't crazy. Sporting Lisbon are a selling club. They might accept a little bit more of a payment plan, Klarna business that Arsenal like. And I agree with you. I think Gyökeres' goals look more impressive than the ones Darwin was scoring over there. Darwin's, like you said, he's a chaos merchant. Gyökeres looks a lot more refined as a striker, the way he finishes. So I'm just hoping. And at the back end of last season, every time Havertz scored, I celebrated, then said, oh, we won't buy a striker. And even in pre-season, every time he scored, I was like, oh, I'm glad he scored. But, Arteta's going to look at that and go, we don't need no one. So my only worry is that if he buys an expensive striker, what happens to Havertz? Havertz ends up on the bench or back in midfield. We saw him in midfield last season. It didn't work. And is Arteta prepared to bench a guy that he clearly loves? He's the top earner as well. I'm just not sure. Listen, I hope desperately that we buy a striker, because I think that is the real missing piece in the team. But I've just got this feeling he wants to go with Havertz, because he's going to say, well, 13 goals last year in half a season, pretty much. If he plays a full season, what can he do? Even on the weekend, he scored a brilliant goal. It was a striker's goal as well, that run across the near post. So, yeah, but even if he thinks Havertz is a brilliant player, you should not have any player at Arsenal that has his shirt without competition. Even Saka, for me. Saka would probably argue is maybe the best attacking player at the club. I don't want Saka comfortable in a thought process that I can have 4 bad games and I won't get dropped. He should be uncomfortable if he has a bad game or two. So I'm hoping. But am I confident? Not really. We're not even really. All the links to strikers are very,
loose.
They're very loose. There's no source. Fabrizio and Ornstein, no one's really saying they're looking at this guy. It's all, this account that's, so I'm not sure. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, listen, I'm hopeful as well, man. This is the way I see it. When people say, well, we don't need a striker, we got Havertz, right? Cool. If that's what you think Havertz is going to get 20 goals, I hope he does. I hope he gets 30, right? That's what I hope. When I look at it, I look back to when we were last successful in the Premier League, Curtis, right? And people would say to me, we won the league at Old Trafford in 2002, and we won games in 2004, which we went unbeatable for. In those games, the one at Old Trafford, Bergkamp and Henry didn't play against Man United at Old Trafford. Kanu and Wiltord did, right? I always use that game as an example because for me, and I go back that long, some people in the chat, apologies if you don't go back that long, but for me, when I was growing up, that was how it was. You had 4 strikers. You played 4-4-2. It's a bit different back then. But for me, you had backup. So when you had Kanu and Wiltord on the bench and Gilberto had Edu to back him up, and we had Ray Parler still there, and we had Reyes, and we had at the back, we obviously had Gal Clichy who's coming in. Martin Keown was still there. This was cover. This was proper bench. You would look at that bench at Highbury and you'd go, "Cool, that's solid. That's experience. Yeah. There's no drop off. There's adequate cover. It's class." So when you look at Havertz and Jesus and you think, okay, Havertz and Jesus could be squad players. Sometimes you might start Havertz still but he comes on from the bench for 25 minutes to give us a different dimension. Jesus comes on wide to give Saka that rest that he needs. You look at Martinelli with some pace that comes on. This is what Arsenal are needing to. And at the moment, we've been bringing Reece Nelson on, Fabio Vieira on, Eddie Nketiah on. That needs to stop. That wasn't good enough for us to get across the line. So for me now, when people say I'm not sure that we need another striker or another attacker, I do not understand how people can say that, because that means you're happy with Reece Nelson staying here then and coming on and praying he does another madness like Bournemouth. Like, for me, that is just not good enough to get you across the line and winning that league. So that's where I'm at with it, man. I just find it bizarre that people are saying that this is not what we need. And I believe there is that striker that's needed. The other thing I'll say as well, bruv, just lastly on this striker thing, I understand why people like Havertz in the 9. I actually quite like him in the 9. I think he's much better than in midfield. I think he's, in fact, I'll say it, I think he's terrible in midfield. I've got to say it. But in the 9, I think he's really good. And I think he does give us something different to Jesus. So I'm not saying we don't have different dimension strikers. What we don't have, though, that Havertz and Jesus don't have, is a killer. Because I don't know if you saw the moment I'm talking about, but against Wolves, Havertz was left in the middle of the box on his right foot. He just needs to put it in the top corner or bottom corner, and he just skies it wide. That's the typical example there of what a Victor Gyökeres would not do, or a Ivan Toney would not. I'd have more confidence with them two running through on goal. I'd have more confidence with them in the box, and I think that's goal. And then people will say, but we scored 91 goals last season with Havertz. We did. But imagine if we got over 100 with another striker. We would win the league. So this is where I'm at. I kind of feel like there's an answer at every point. Is but we don't. Yeah, but we do. And that's where I'm at. I just think that striker absolutely needs to come in for me. So that's kind of where I'm at, bro. Listen, people, there's 1.2K in here. Unbelievable numbers, man. Please make sure you do me a favor and hit the like button. Please make sure that you hit subscribe. There's a lot of new people in here. So please make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you're doing exactly the same over at Curtis Shaw TV as well. Bruv, might as well talk a little bit about the Aston Villa game while I've got you on it, man, because that's the next game. Unai Emery versus Mikel Arteta. Bro, I don't know if you saw the Yardman and Robbie thing at AFTV. My goodness, I was right in front of me, man. I was waiting for my fan cam and I was thinking, I'm not going to get on it at this rate. They're just going to get some boxing gloves out in a minute. Where do you stand on that argument? Let me ask you that, because you're quite honest like me. You'll say it how it is. Like, this is what I thought. I don't know what you think, right? I kind of felt like the question was kind of wrong. So I feel like both of them took it the wrong way. So Robbie was thinking Yardman was going, go get Emery now. He's better than Arteta. And Yardman was thinking, Robbie was saying, well, Arteta is 100% a better manager than Unai Emery. Where I think what actually the conversation should have been was, Emery's got the brilliant CV, Arteta hasn't. Arteta's better for Arsenal right now, but Emery tried and it wasn't. And I think we'd have gone their separate ways and that was it. That's kind of where I was at, bro. But I don't know what your thoughts were on it, man.
Two stubborn people who don't listen too well. That's the problem. You know what I mean? Listen, I think factually Emery's a better manager than Arteta. Let's just put that out there first of all. You can't have the CV Emery's got and then Arteta's CV and say Arteta's better. Emery is a better manager than Arteta. In terms of his CV, there is no doubt. Where I think the debate comes into it is, I feel like Arteta's trying to become a world-class manager. He's almost aiming higher than what Emery is aiming for, in my opinion. I think Emery is very comfortable at those clubs who are challenging for top four, that will win an FA Cup or win a Spanish Cup. He's very good in Europe, in cup situations. Emery, unfortunately, the reason he's not at one of the biggest clubs, in my opinion, because when he went to PSG, he struggled with big characters. And, he didn't get them over the line in Europe. And when he went to Arsenal, it didn't work out for him. Now, there is context in that. He had 15 months in the job and wasn't backed adequately. So who knows what Emery would have done at Arsenal if he'd have been given 5 years and 700 million like Arteta. He may have done a lot better than what Arteta has done. However, in that second season, we were stinking out the place, 25 shots conceded at Watford. You know, it just didn't look like it was going in the right direction. So I look at Arteta and I think, okay, Emery's above him now, but Arteta is trying to get in that mix with the very best in the world, and he needs to win a league title to do that. Emery's not working with the same pressure as Arteta. Top four was unbelievable at Aston Villa to get that from a relegation battle to the Champions League. So, listen, I think it's just a case of almost both of them can be right at the same time. You know, Arteta is better for Arsenal, and Emery has probably got the better CV, which makes him the better manager. But ultimately, Arteta has been given the tools to be more successful at Arsenal. He's been given the patience. He's been given £100 million players. If you look at the Emery first window, I think we bought about 5 players for like 90 million. You know, that was never going to work. So, yeah, I think Emery's better, but I think Arteta is kind of aiming to be better than him. He's aiming to win the title, to win the Champions League. I don't think Emery is trying to do that at Aston Villa. But listen, this weekend, that will feed into the argument either way. If Villa beat us, they're going to, oh, look, you know. But so listen, I think we have to remember with Arteta, whatever we think of him, he's at the beginning of his career. It's his first job. Yeah. You know, not many managers go into their first job and blow up the place unless, you know, Pep went into an incredible Barcelona team that was just ready to win, Zidane at Real Madrid. So I think, you know, I think they're both where they kind of feel they should be at the moment. With Arteta, you're just saying, look, can you get Arsenal over the finish line? That's the thing that we're saying. That's your final hurdle. Whether you are going to be that top quality manager or not, is can you win that title? Can you win a Champions League? Can you win trophies? I think Emery is in a club that very much suits him, you know, challenging for top 4, trying to win domestic trophies, but not that very, very top level. Because you've always got to say with Emery, why has Emery never ended up at Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona? You know, even the Spanish clubs obviously think maybe he's a good cup manager, a good top 4 manager, but not the title-winning manager. So I think, like you said, with Yardman and Robbie, they're both kind of right, but just neither one of them was listening to each other.
No, that was what it was, man.
You get a lot of that with them too.
Step in, man, and say, look, like what you're trying to say is, and what you just got to leave him, man. But listen, I think you're bang on with the latter part and what you've said. He's done a phenomenal job with good football clubs. When it's come to great football clubs, he's struggled. PSG and Arsenal are 2 of those clubs, right? When you look at what he's done with Seville, to win 4 Europa Leagues with Seville and Villarreal is incredible. And I'll go as far to say, I'm not sure Arteta could do that, right? I'll go as far to say that, right? But when you look at what he's done at Villa, I actually think it's the perfect club for him because he's got a lot of links there, actually. People don't know about the people that are behind the scenes at Villa that are really close with Emery. He's actually got a lot of backing. I think he could do a really good job at Aston Villa, man. And I think he already has. And I think he'll continue to. But my biggest thing is he's got to actually beat him because Emery, he's kind of had one over Arteta for a while now. I mean, he did the double over him last year. He beat him twice against Villarreal, I think it was, or was it a draw and then through? And then obviously when you look at what he did, I think we've only beaten him once in 5 attempts, and that was when Jorginho smashed it last minute, went off Emery Martinez, he said, and went in. So for me, that is the only time we've actually beaten an Emery side. So we've got to prove now that we're good enough. And I just want to get your thoughts on this weekend's game. And if you'd make any changes to that 11 for the Aston Villa game at Villa Park, man, what are you saying?
I mean, listen, there's one change that if we don't make that change,
I'm with you.
We're in big trouble. And we all know what that is because last year, you know, you seen what Leon Bailey was doing against a certain Zinchenko. And listen, Zinny didn't play as bad as some people are making out at the weekend. Defensively, he was pretty solid. It's just in the second half, he got so casual in possession and just giving the ball away under no pressure. You get away with that at home against Wolves. You won't get away with that at Villa Park or at more difficult grounds. So as long as Timber is fit, he's got to play at left back. I'm saying Timber because Calafiori didn't come on, so I'm assuming he's a bit further behind Timber. Timber had the full pre-season with Arsenal. Calafiori obviously came in late. So you have to get Zinchenko out at left back as long as Timber is fit. But the problem is Timber had that little I think he said a foot injury, didn't he, at the end of pre-season, and he pulled him out for a bit. So does he believe Timber is fit enough to start a game at Villa Park at left back? And he said in pre-season at one of the press conferences, he'd been playing him at centre back rather than full back to take down the amount of running that he had to do in a game because of his injury. So that's my only concern. He might look at Timber and go, but for me, you start him and you take him off. You know, if we're winning the game and you can think, okay, we're winning now, let's manage his minutes. Maybe you can take him off later in the game. Whether it's Calafiori or Timber, I do not want to see Zinchenko at left back because I just think Bailey will get the better of him. I think those direct wingers that are quick, that can dribble and tricky, Zinchenko struggles against them. And I just think you've got to get him out for this game. So I really hope Arteta isn't stubborn and sticks with him. Apart from that, I think the rest of the team, Martinelli had a bit of an up and down performance against Wolves. I think you could look at that, but I actually think this game might suit him more than the Wolves game because Wolves just sort of set up on the edge of the box. You know, they played 3 at the back, 5 at the back, however you want to call it, where I think Villa will actually attack us, which may suit Martinelli in transition because Bailey defensively, you know, might allow us to get 1v1 with Matty Cash. And so I would possibly... it's a difficult one with Martinelli and Trossard because Trossard, to me, is a better footballer than Martinelli. Way more intelligent, way more technically gifted, and a better finisher, in my opinion. But the problem is, Martinelli is Brazilian international. He's in his early 20s. He's on big wages. We sort of need to see how good can this guy become. We're still looking at Martinelli saying, well, potentially he could be a superstar, but if it doesn't work out, he could end up getting sold in a year if it doesn't happen for him. Where I look at Trossard, and I kind of feel like he's 29 now. Is he at the peak of his career? You know, so I would probably go with Martinelli because of the pace. Use Trossard later on. Partey's second half was. I mean, bro, you was in the stadium. I watched it on TV. I'm sitting there at half time going, yo. There was stats coming up saying 100% pass accuracy in the first half. I said, yo, Partey's back, man. You know, you get 30 games out of him. And I sat there second half. I said, bro, is this his uncle? Like, who is this on the pitch? He's falling over. He's giving the ball away. I couldn't believe he didn't get dragged.
Bro, you know he gave the ball away 5 times in the second half. That is shambles.
5?
Honestly, bro, it's so bad. Like, I don't know. I'm with you. Like, this Villa game for me, we have to play Timber at left back or Calafiori, depends who's the fittest. What frustrates me, right, is we've had, 9 weeks of this window, whatever it's been. We've bought in, like, a left back. We've bought a left back from fitness, and we're still playing Zinchenko. It's like, Jesus,
crazy.
Like, this is crazy, man. Like, just play one of these brothers because they're better. Now, listen, Zinchenko had a really good preseason, and to be fair to him, he was fine against Wolves, right? Defensively, he's not had to do anything yet. He will against Villa, and they will score. We saw what happened last time it happened, right? So for me, when I look at what we need to do, it has to be Timber, who, by the way, I thought, I don't know about you, looked really sharp when he come on. I thought he looked really, really good, right? So that's definite. I'm actually the other way around to you. I would start Trossard and I would bring Martinelli as pace on. That's what I would do. I think Trossard away from home, I can just think of so many goals that he scored, whether it be against West Ham, against Fulham's, against teams like Manchester United at Old Trafford. These are the games for me that I think he actually does turn up in. So I would play Trossard and then I'd bring on Martinelli. Everything else would be fine for me. But Thomas Partey is an issue. And I'll tell you why. 60 minutes, he looks fine. Then he goes out of the game. Now, I don't know if that's his age, if that's just his fitness problems or what, but we need to look at that because that could be an issue. Whether we have to play Rice in the 6 and then bring on Wanyeri or drop Havertz into whatever he wants to do, we need to look at that big time because that is definitely not a good thing. Maybe he brings on Jorginho and uses Rice in the 8. That might be better. But for me, Thomas Partey looked like a Rolls Royce in the first half and an absolute banger in the second. It was shocking, mate. Honestly, it was so embarrassing how bad it was. It was like a game or two halves for him, man. But listen, Aston Villa, it's a tough game, right? We know that. It's a tough place to go as well, actually. But if Arsenal want to win this title, these are the sort of games that we have to be winning because there's so many rival fans right now going, bet they draw this game, bet they lose this game. There's so many of them that are thinking that. This is a statement game to me, Curtis, and it's mad to say that against Aston Villa, who, by the way, are Champions League and well respected. But it's like we're going to Anfield here or we're going to Old Trafford, it feels like. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. This is a game that is now become a really big kind of hurdle for us. And I remember saying, might have been to yourself or Troops, I said, the mentality at Arsenal this season is what I'm looking at to change. I'm looking at us to go to the Etihad, the Anfield games, the Old Trafford games, White Hart Lane, Villa Park is one of them. St. James Park is another one now. But I want to go to those games, walk away with 3 points. I don't want to go, oh, thank God we got a point there. We didn't lose. That mentality has got to change if you want to win the league for me. We've got to go there and people have got to say, we're going to beat Villa today. We are going to beat Aston Villa. We're a better team. We've got a
Yeah.
manager that should be hungry to beat them. And for me, on paper, we're better. And as a team, we're better. So that's why I want 3 points. And I've heard people in the fan base say, I'll take a point with you. I'll take a point. I think Robbie even said to Lee the other day, I think if we draw to Villa and Man City, that's all right. I'm not taking a draw in this game, Curtis. I don't know about you.
No, not in this one. I think when you look at our next 4 games, we've obviously got Villa, Brighton, Tottenham, and City, haven't we? I think you've got to beat Villa. I'll be honest. Villa are good and they are tough at their ground. Even last year, we went there. We didn't play great. I feel like we could have beat them. We missed good chances in that game, and they scored that mad goal. Listen, Villa didn't finish the season great. If you look at their form at the back end of last season, they weren't amazing. You know, obviously they lost in the Conference League and 1 or 2 other results. They've had an okay window. You know, Onana came in, played very well the other day, but obviously they lost Douglas Luiz. I think we've got to beat them, to be honest. Because of the games that are around them, Tottenham and Man City away. Yeah, I think this is, out of those 3 games, I think this is I won't say the easiest because, you know, they finished above Tottenham, but you know what Tottenham's like, you know, because of the atmosphere, and then Man City is a nightmare place for us at the moment. I think you've got to win this game, to be honest. If we draw, it's not the end of the world, but I'm actually not going to turn up before that game and say, I'll take a draw. I wouldn't take a draw. You know, if we drew, I'd probably be disappointed. I wouldn't be going crazy, but it would put us under pressure going into, because to me, you've got to win at least 1 or 2 out of Tottenham, Man City and Villa. You've got to get a couple of wins out of those 3. Maybe if you draw at the Etihad but I think you've got to go and beat Villa. They're a good team. They're not a great team. I think if you can go there, Partey will be important because of his power against Onana, even if you only get 60 minutes out of him and then you bring Jorginho on. I just think we've got better options than them off the bench as well. Like you said, if Trossard started, you could bring Martinelli on or vice versa. They've obviously lost Diaby as well, who was a good option off the bench for them. So I think we've got to win this game. I think we've got to go there and be positive. In back to what you were saying at the left back, what I don't understand with Calafiori is Italy were knocked out early in the tournament. I think they got knocked out in the first knockout game. He came to Philadelphia with Arsenal, so he arrived halfway through the tour. And then second week of the season, this guy still isn't fit. He wasn't injured. He's been training. Why did we not get him up to speed quickly to get him in ahead of Zinchenko? I don't get that, to be honest. So, yeah.
No, me neither, man. And what makes me laugh is when Arteta's questioned on it, he says he's only just got here. God, man, the guy landed weeks ago. What are we talking about?
He speaks English. You know what I mean? He was on the tour. He wasn't injured. Italy got knocked out early. Why ain't he in the team? I don't get it. But
nah,
the mystery of Arsenal, you know?
Me neither. I guess, listen, he's moulding him in somehow. But for me, when you've still got Zinchenko playing, it's kind of frustrating. And people think I hate on Zinchenko. I do defensively. Offensively, I actually quite like him. I think he's really good as a footballer going forward, and technically he's gifted. But defensively, he's a shambles, and he can't start at Villa Park for me, man. He really can't. Listen, just lastly, before we do come to a close, bro, Manchester City, for me, were always favourites going into this season. And I honestly believe, bro, the only way that would have changed is if Manchester City went backwards and Arsenal went forwards. And at the moment, Arsenal have stayed put, in my opinion, at the moment. And Manchester City have actually gone forwards. They've brought in Savinho, like you say, or Savio. They brought in, or it looks like they're getting in Gundogan to return. Isn't it mad that they've replaced Gundogan with Gundogan 2 years later? It's mad, bro. And then they're also linked with the Celtic striker and John Duran as well to cover for Julian Alvarez. So if they're to get that business done, I can't help but look at Man City again, man. It's going to be way too tough, man. So Arsenal have now got to get this business done in the last week to say, do you know what? I know you fancy yourselves with Gundogan and XYZ, but boom, Arsenal have now just gone and got him. And until we do that, I kind of feel like it's City's again, Curtis. I don't know where you're at, bro.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Alvarez that was a big loss, whether they replace him or not, because then if Haaland was injured, they haven't got an out-and-out striker. But I said at the end of last season, we need to have a better window than Man City because they're ahead of us. So if they're ahead of us, We've got to do something that puts us ahead of them. I just don't think any Arsenal fan can truly sit there and say Calafiori and Marino, if that happens. I don't think you can sit there and say that window now puts us ahead of Manchester City. I don't see how it does. I was hoping at the start of summer, Edison was being linked with Saudi and De Bruyne. I thought, okay, if they lose 2 or 3 key players and don't strengthen. But, I mean, I watched Savio quite a lot last year. I do watch La Liga quite a lot after the Premier League. And his potential is through the roof. I don't know if you watched the game against Chelsea. He can dribble. He's quick.
Incredible.
He's got end product. He's like Mahrez with pace, a bit smaller. He can be an absolute superstar. And Gundo is just a clutch player, as we all know. And I think they'll probably get someone else in as well because they've made so much money in this window. They sold players like Liam Delap for 20 million who hasn't kicked a ball for their first team. So they've made over 100 million with Alvarez and that deal alone. I just don't think we've done enough. I don't, honestly. I look at our defence. I think, that defence, best defence in the league. You've added Calafiori, Timber's come back. That defence is superb. Goalkeeper position is fine. Midfield, I still got to... Listen, I expect Marino to come in, so that centre midfield sorted, hopefully. Still think we've got a big risk around Martin Odegaard. If Odegaard got injured, I don't see where the creativity comes from. If you're putting Vieira in that role, that is not good enough, in my opinion. Which is why I think Eze or someone should have been signed. I think his release clause expired now, so you're not getting him for 60 million. And then just that front line. Listen, they're rolling the dice that Saka, Havertz, and maybe Trossard and Martinelli together on the left is going to be enough. That, for me, is a big risk. I suppose they're hoping Saka goes from 16 goals to 20 goals and that you get maybe 20 plus goals out of Martinelli and Trossard combined. And then maybe Havertz gets close to 20 goals. Maybe they think that's going to be enough. But I just think they're taking a big risk. So if I'm being honest, at the moment, how we're sitting now, I think City will win the league. Whatever happens in the next 8 days can change that. But when I talk to people, they go, City won't be as hungry or there'll be a drop-off. And I think, well, when have you seen a Pep Man City team drop off? If anything, the drop-off would have been after winning the treble because you're full now. You've achieved everything now. We'll just relax and have a drop-off. They didn't win the Champions League last year. They lost the FA Cup final to Man United. I think if anything, there's going to be a hunger and a determination. And people have to remember, this is Pep's last year of his contract. He may extend that. But at the moment, this is his last year. That 115 could blow up this year. So maybe Pep's thinking one more year, then go before it all gets a bit naughty here. So listen, City aren't as good as they were a couple of years ago. But we've still got some more making up to do in terms of getting ahead of them. And I think let's see what Edu and the Kroenkes do. For me, if Edu and the Kroenkes leave us in this situation in 8 days' time, even if Marino comes in, I think they have let the manager and the fans down massively.
Massively. Yeah, 100%, bro. Honestly, if we do not get what's needed and we just keep it as Marino, Calafiori, and maybe a backup keeper if we do sell Ramsdale, for me, it's an absolute disgrace, I think, from the ownership and the board to not go into the attacking options and potentially sell Eddie and Reece Nelson and not get somebody in. I think we absolutely have to. I think we just have to now. I just don't see how we can't go and get an attack-minded player. I just think it's stupid that isn't the case. So for me, man, that's where I'm at. Listen, we're going to wrap it up there because I know that you're going to go and have another show. Listen, man, absolute legend for getting you on, man. What you got coming up, bro?
I haven't even got a show planned for today. I was going to go live at 2, but I looked and I'm just like, oh, man, like, do I really want to talk about Marino yet? There was a rumor this morning that you probably saw. They said Marino might be announced today or... and that obviously hasn't happened yet. And they were also saying Eddie might be announced. I know the Forest manager's just had his press conference, so I don't know if he said anything about Eddie in that, but I may go live later on instead. But yeah, watch along at the weekend and all of that. So just hope, man. I'm like you. I see your shows in the morning and I'm like, please just give us something to celebrate. You know, we've got to make one big signing in this window. You can't tell me Calafiori was the big summer signing of the window and Edu's saying, don't worry, be patient, you're going to be happy. Like, come on.
Yeah, listen, Edu needs to sort it out. Arteta as well. I know that people don't give it to Arteta with the transfer stuff, and I understand in terms of the negotiation, but he's definitely massively involved in who he wants. I just hope that Edu and the Cronkies can actually look at this and say, do you know what? The Arteta wants this, we're giving him it. And I'll tell you this now, to end this, I'll be shocked if we don't get an attacker this window. I'll be shocked if it's not a forward. I don't know if it's going to be a forward or a striker or a winger. I'll be absolutely stunned, and I will look at that. I will call Edu and the owners all the names under the sun, because that is just neglect of a clear position that we could maximise. And you know, we were told not long ago, Curtis, that once you get this squad that we've got now, we'll sprinkle it with gold dust, and it will be world class players coming in. I ain't seen any of them that are world class yet, because Declan Rice was a wicked player, but it's hard to call him world class when he's come from West Ham after winning one trophy. So for me, when you look at this, where is the Alexander Isaks, who I would say is right up there for being that? Where is the centre half that's coming in, the centre midfield? All these players, are we looking at that spine thinking, this invincible team? It looks like the invincible team, this. So I just think when you look back, you think, why did you say that? You know, be realistic. You would just say you will get the best players in per window. You know, if there's a player available that window, Arsenal's name will be linked with it. And that's what we want to be seeing, yeah? Because like when Mbappe went to Real Madrid, we all knew he was going to Madrid. You wanted Arsenal to be linked with him, though. Do you know what I mean? That's the position that we're in now. When we're still being linked with players like Lookman and Raheem Sterling, it's like, oh dear, this ain't quite working for me. So that's where we're at, man. That's where we're at. Listen, people, there's been 1,400 of you here today. Absolute legends. Please do me a favor, hit the like button. Make sure you hit subscribe as well. Those two buttons absolutely free. Make sure you show Manscaped some love. Click on the link in the pinned comments. Select the beard hedger. You'll get 20% off as well. And make sure you go over to Curtis Shaw TV as well, people. Take it easy. We're out of here. We'll see you next time, and up the Arsenal. Latest, people.